My name's Kirstin Parkin, and I'm currently at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. I'm an assistant professor, and I primarily have a teaching position now. I did do some bench research for a while, but now I'm teaching. I teach medical students, I teach an upper-level undergraduate immunology course, and I also teach and coordinate our enormous intro bio course for undergrads.
I'm Pam Witte. I am a professor emerita in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Loyola's Medical Center. And I was there for almost 30 years. And I had a research lab doing B-cell immunology. And the two professors here with me were my students.
I'm Heather Minges Wols. I'm at Columbia College, Chicago. I'm an associate professor there, and Columbia College is a little bit unique because it's primarily an arts and media focused school, so the students that come through my classes are not traditional science majors. And so I teach microbiology and a virology class, and we are all here because, as Dr. Witte said, which we can't get away from saying, that we were her students, PhD students. Kirstin was 1 year older than me in the lab, and we still have continued to come to the conferences. This year, Kirstin and I are both actually doing teaching presentations, and we just really wanted to sort of celebrate our time with Dr. Witte too.
At the time, there actually was a trio of young women, Cara Johnson also, besides Kirstin and Heather, and that was a little bit of a golden era in my lab, and it was a lot of fun. It was pretty much girls in the lab. It was nearly all women, and I would say that maybe there was a little bit of envy even around campus, that there was such activity, and it was very, very happy. As you know, there wasn't much conflict. It was a good time in the lab, good thoughts, good hypotheses. We love data, good data loving, right.
When I came into the lab, it was a really interesting time because Dr. Witte, it was kind of an end of one era and I think the beginning of another, because she graduated a student as well as a postdoc, and two technicians who had been with her for several years also moved on to, one got married and they moved on to different positions, and so it was kind of a new beginning when I came in that for a little while it was just her and I, and so then we kind of worked together, really training a new technician and then recruiting in Heather and Cara as graduate students to add into the lab. So I think it kind of grew very organically because of that, and so I think that really was why it was. She was transitioning, I was transitioning into kind of this new era.
I think one of the most important things that we took away from our time with Dr. Witte is the importance and the power of controls. We are very diligent about that in our lab, and to really look hard at our data too. I think that was one of the more rewarding experiences. Was I could go into her office and say, look at this, look at what I found, and be really excited, and she's like, but, which was frustrating at the time, especially when you're counting down the days until you're done. But it truly made us such better scientists to really consider the different possibilities to our data, but also, like I said, the importance of our controls and how they helped validate our data. And there are still a lot of labs that don't really pay as much attention to that as they should. And I think that's one thing that we've always been really proud about too, is that we know by the time we publish our data, and it might take us longer than other people, but we feel confident in it as well.
I think another important thing was good writing, good definitely good writing. She really, when we were writing papers or even just writing for presentations, accurately conveying our message. I mean, you really are a very good writer and a good editor, and so in reading other people's manuscripts, I realized that was something we gained, and you know, communicating your work to the scientific community, to the public at large, is very important aspect of being in research and just science in general. So I think, and then actually a love of education, which came through, because Dr. Witte, she would kind of light up actually when she would get ready to teach the medical students, and not all scientists are that way. And so you might not have realized that, but she did light up. She would get really excited about teaching histology, especially.
Right. It wasn't the gross anatomy I had
No,
to teach. Histology maybe.
Yeah, but you really did light up. You know, her true, genuine enjoyment of actually the immune system and the cells and things that we think about would come through when she was preparing to teach. So.
One of the things that's gone on through the years is that Heather was local in Chicago. She still was at a university in Chicago, and she wanted to continue doing research, so we've been active collaborators until I retired recently, and we had a grant together, an NIH grant together. So we've been able to continue our relationship, scientific relationship, which has been wonderful, and it's great coming to a meeting like this. You don't get to see many sessions because you're out visiting with people, I'm afraid. Yeah. Every student that comes into the lab is such a unique individual. You can't use sort of a mold for them, and so it was evident that both Kirstin and Heather were very interested in teaching. That was a love that they had, and they brought it from their undergraduate time. I have always wondered, who was it in your undergraduate time that influenced you so much to want to be an undergraduate teacher?
You know, for me, it was kind of two things. Part of my drive was actually that when I went to undergraduate at University of Michigan, which is a large Big Ten university, huge courses, and sadly, and I feel awful saying this in a way, but my biology courses, in the beginning, I almost fell out of love with science. And I happened to have just a funny immunology teacher. But the person who inspired me the most was actually an English instructor named Ralph Williams. And I always think to this day I should write to him, because I was in a class of 400 students. And so, you know, how could he affect me so much? But he had so much passion for wanting to, I mean, he just loved what he was teaching. And it was the first time that I didn't worry about my grade. I just wanted to learn, because I wanted to try to understand the literature that we were studying in his class in a way so that I could maybe enjoy it as much as he did. And so I realized, wow, you know, I mean, scientists really, most scientists just, they love what they do. I mean, you don't go into science for many other reasons. You really have to have a passion for it, but yet sometimes it doesn't come out. And so I really, that's kind of always driven me, that I want to convey that love of science. And my students will tell me, you say you love this. And I'm like, yes, I really do. You know, and so it was an English professor that really, his name's Ralph Williams.
That's
he's now
so
retired.
Interesting.
Yeah. He really. It was that turning point for me of not worrying about grades, just not worrying, but wanting to just learn, really learn for the sake of learning. And so then when I came to graduate school, I mean, there were moments that were a little tough, but I just enjoyed it, because I was learning now about what I wanted to learn about, and so yeah.
That's a scholar.
Yeah.
For me, it was a a new faculty member that came in my junior year. She was my microbiology teacher, Dr. Dara Wegman-Geedy. And well, we had smaller classrooms than Kirstin. A lot of our professors had been there for a while, and some of them were a little bit stale in terms of their teaching, and very focused on getting us all through the MCAT and off to medical school, of which I was along that track for a while. And then I had my microbiology class with Dara, and sort of similarly, instead of it being, here's the term and the definition and memorize it for your exam, she was actually asking us to think about it and telling us why, and asking us why would this work this way, and what would happen if we took this out, and really having us think much more, it's sort of sad to say this, but much more critically than I had been. And I just really enjoyed that, and really enjoyed having the time and the opportunity to think through a problem versus memorization and quick recall. And so I started talking to her and started worrying a little bit about the fact that I wasn't sure medical school was for me, and never really, I came from a small farm town, and I didn't really know about graduate school and being a scientist. It was sort of, you knew about being a doctor and a lawyer and a banker, and that was about it. And she just really inspired me. And so I knew, one, that I wanted to go to graduate school, but I also really wanted teaching to be an element of that. And while I didn't initially envision myself on a path where I wouldn't have science majors as sort of my main focus, what's actually been great about Columbia is I have the opportunity to help influence and educate sort of our general public, right? So scientific literacy is so important right now, and an area I think our nation is lacking in. And so that's been very rewarding, that I get to get excited about the science and try to at least instill a little bit upon my students.